Big vote, as you know, NZR HQ this morning, and as expected, the Provincial Unions rejected the Pilkington's review. Rob Nichol, RPA boss, joins us again. Rob, Proposal 1, which is the one you wanted rejected, what does it mean?
Well, I think it's just a great opportunity lost, unfortunately. The expert panel did a great job of laying out the recommendations that the game needed to implement perfectly. Those recommendations had support from New Zealand Rugby themselves, New Zealand Rugby Commercial, the Super Rugby clubs, the Māori Rugby Board, the NZRPA, and a really good group of provincial unions. And, dare I say it, a large number of commentators in the public domain. But unfortunately, it hasn't carried the day, and we've ended up with, I suppose, a proposal which the experts have labelled status quo or worse. So not a great outcome for the game. It's just a real pity that the opportunity wasn't taken.
What happens now with you, though? Because you've already threatened that, hey, you're going to break away and the players are going to form another organisation to run the professional side of the game. Is that going to happen?
No, well, just to be clear on that, we didn't threaten anything. We just told everyone what we would do up front, which is what's important in our world, is to be honest and up front. And that's what we'll go about doing. We will sit down, obviously, with New Zealand Rugby, with the Super Rugby clubs, with New Zealand Rugby Commercial, and say, okay, well, given this landscape and given that we have an NZR board constituted the way it is, how are we going to work together and how are we going to run the professional game? And in our view, and we've been upfront about this, is we need to set up a tribunal involving those parties and come up with a framework under which key decisions are going to be made and the professional game flourishes. So nothing changes in that respect. We know exactly what we're about to do, and we'll do that through the bargaining and negotiation process that we've been through many times before. It's just that we now know that's going to be not straightforward. It's going to be hard work, but we'll get there.
Rob, where's your financials coming from? Who's backing you on this? Because if you're going to form a brand new organisation, that's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. Where does that money come from?
No, just to be clear, Marty, we talked about a tribunal. So let me take it away from New Zealand Rugby context. If we jump into England, they already have a professional game board. Okay, it's not a separate entity. It's not a separate organisation. It's a body set up that involves the RFU, the clubs and the players, and they focus in on professional rugby and how they're going to work together to govern it. It's a similar model in France, and a set of models in other professional sports environments that also have community and amateur games around the world. So we're not talking about necessarily, unless all the stakeholders decided we needed to incorporate another body, but it's probably the last thing we need in New Zealand Rugby at the moment. What we're talking about is a tribunal that is set up to put a real focus on the professional game and get us a lot more efficient and effective in terms of delivering for the overall game. That's what we're talking about, and it needs to involve the key stakeholders in the game, which includes New Zealand Rugby, which we will view as a body that is set up to govern for PUs on behalf of PUs, which is absolutely fine. That's just the lay of the land, and we'll move forward from that basis. But there's a bit of water to go under the bridge. There's some pretty big implications on some of the stakeholders under Proposal 2. And it'll be interesting to see how they react over the coming days.
Rob Nichol from the RPA is with us. Is there any thought or possibility of live rugby, that you could take these players and that could be the end of what we know of actual professional rugby, the franchise system in New Zealand, the All Blacks and everything else, that it could end up being based out of the Middle East, something like that?
No, not at all. Let's just back up the farm here. There is no group more committed to the community and rugby in this country than the professional players. And I think if you look at our actions over the last 3 or 4 years, everything has been about, whether you look at the Silver Lake situation, whether you look at this situation, this was not our recommendations. This was not us versus the provinces or us versus New Zealand Rugby. We committed to that process of the governance review just like every stakeholder, because we wanted a fit-for-purpose, best practice governance model for the game in this country. We wanted 9 independent directors that took decisions on behalf of the game in this country in the best interests of the game in this country, not in the best interests of the players, not in the best interests of the provinces, not in the best interests of Māori rugby, and the best interests of the game. And we still desperately want to see that. And we may well see it. I wouldn't rule it out, to be honest, despite today's result, because we all know, frankly, the vast majority of New Zealanders know that's the right way forward. What's happened today is not that, it's something else, but I suspect we will actually eventually get there. That's what we've been pushing for. We're not pushing our own barrow here. We actually believe that professional players will flourish under an independent board making those kind of decisions in the best interest of the game. But so, most importantly, will the community game and that connection to the community and our ability to keep the pathways for coaches and players who want to go into the professional side of the game here and alive in New Zealand.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
David Moffett, the former CEO of NZR, joins us. David, welcome back.
Yeah, mate, good to talk to you as every time we do talk.
Are you surprised at all by the provincial unions doing what they've done?
No, not at all. In actual fact, I think that Rob Nichol's time has come and gone, and I think he should be replaced, perhaps with somebody like Conrad Smith. I mean, the guy has obviously got a little bit of power has gone to his head, and the threats that he was making last week were an absolute disgrace, and I don't think he should be leading that organisation any longer, because he will just lead it into the wilderness.
He's saying that he didn't threaten anything. He just said he stated what they were going to do. So that means that if he follows through with that, I mean, look, I know it's just words, it's semantics, isn't it? I mean, it sounded like a threat to everyone else that read those comments. If this doesn't happen, we're going to do this. That's by definition a threat. So what happens now, though? I mean, are we stuck in this quagmire, or are the provincial unions just going to... No?
No, we're not. The provincial rugby unions have resisted Nichol's attempt to bully them into something that they have their right is to, the democratic right is to actually consider the options and vote the way they want to vote. They're not going to vote the way that Nichols wants them to vote, because who is he? I mean, he doesn't own New Zealand Rugby. You know, he represents the players, and he has put the players in a really bad position by coming out in what he said last week. And he has got to go. But here's something else, mate. The entire board has now got to go and take the chief executive with them, because this is yet another unseemly incident on top of many recently. And let me just make this point as well. The board at the moment, as I understand it, is an actual fact a board with more independence than representatives from the provincial rugby unions. And look what a shambles they've made of it. So it's not a panacea for guys like Nichol, who's never run a rugby union, to stand up and say, we just need 9 independents, because they all know what they're doing, which is absolute bullshit, mate. Absolute bullshit. I've had enough experience with independents coming in. They put all of their knowledge and all of their expertise to one side. When they get involved in sport, they become embroiled in the whole, opportunity to strut the stage as a board member of New Zealand Rugby or whatever rugby union it is, and they don't make right decisions. You need people from the sport to actually hold these people back and say, listen, you have to understand that rugby is too much of a sport to be a business, and too much of a business to be a sport. And if you don't understand that, that's why they get into trouble.
David, do you think that it could actually separate here, though, under an umbrella, but that the professional side of it, because things have changed demonstrably since 1996, and it's arguable as to whether club rugby drives the elite level of the game anymore. So do you think that there is scope there to actually separate the professional side of the game from the amateur game, but still have it run by the same entity?
That's been tried in other unions. More recently, Welsh Rugby, which has got themselves into an incredible tangle. It has been tried in other unions. It doesn't work. But let's face it, they've only got the provincial rugby unions will only have 3 board members. So what are they worried about? You know, they need their expertise. And for anybody to suggest that in all of the 25, 27 provincial rugby unions, there aren't 3 people with the talent and the ability to sit on the New Zealand Rugby Board, then those guys are kidding themselves. And I never agreed with the Pilkington report, and I still don't agree with it. It was too much of a bite to take at it. I think that he gave them, and I don't know whether it's right or not, but I think he gave them what they were looking for. And the provincial rugby unions today have said, no, thank you. We don't want that. We will vote. And we will vote as we're entitled to on what we think should happen. They've done it. Now, I can tell you now, if Nichol continues down his road to take them somewhere else, I'll get onto that in a minute, then he will be responsible for trashing 120 plus years or whatever it is, goodwill that this nation has with the All Blacks.